So the user persona. So far, we've created an empathy map and a user journey for Geraldine Jones, who's our 23-year-old sales representative who lives in our fictional town of Benjamin Heads. We know all about her experiences with public transport, and we're going to put all this information together to create a final user persona. And this user persona is going to be really useful for us as we develop our project. It'll help us focus on our user needs and requirements for the solution, and at the end, hopefully, help us to have a product or service that Geraldine will actually want to use. So now, based on the empathy map that was developed and also the user journey for Geraldine catching the bus to work, I'm going to create a persona. So there are a lot of online tools that help you with this process in terms of layout. I'm just going to use the one at personagenerator.com. They are mostly equivalent. You just need to find one that works for you. So I'm just going to start filling out this information based on what we know. So her name is Geraldine Jones. She's 23. She lives in Benjamin Heads. Her highest level of education, she's a sales representative. So I'm going to say that she's 23. She's probably gone to TAFE. Sales representative. She may be doing tertiary study, but this is what I've decided for now. And she is single. We'll come back and give her a quote later, but right now I'm going to fill out the boxes below that I know. Being quite young, she's quite comfortable with the internet. She's pretty good with software and mobile apps. And she's reasonably social. She's not hugely social. Benjamin Hedge is a small community. Okay, what does she need? Okay, the things that we've identified that she needs is she really needs more information about the state of the public transport system. Now we can actually be more specific about this. She requires real-time information about where the bus and taxis are. That's her primary need. If we could solve that, it would reduce her anxiety. So then what she wants to reduce her anxiety. She wants assurance that the bus or taxi is going to arrive and when. That's what she really wants. What does she value? Well, the things that she values is time. She values knowing and being able to use her time well and not having to sit at the bus stop for 25 minutes in the morning waiting for a bus that may or may not come, that may or may not be early. What's she afraid of? She's afraid of missing the bus. And the reason she's afraid of missing the bus because it means she has to ride to work on her bicycle. Which means she might be late. She's afraid of being late to work. Because there might be consequences. If she's late for work, then she may need to stay extra time in the afternoon to make up that deficit, which means that she could miss the bus coming home. So there could be a whole cascading effect of lateness on her because she doesn't have a car. So that's what she's afraid of. So what is the criteria that we can generate to make Geraldine feel like she's on top of her problem? Well, our criteria of success for her are that she needs to have, or she requires, real-time information about the location and availability of public transport. Okay, is there anything else that we can fill up about her persona? I suppose if we had considered her weekend activities and catching the cab, we might have come up with some type of situation where something that she really hates is ordering the cab, but then getting offered a lift by someone, so she has to turn it down. So what she wants to be able to make a judgment about the best means of traveling on the weekend. Should it be public transport or with a friend? So now we can give her a voice. We can give her a quote. So we're going to have Geraldine say something like, I really like the community. I look forward to the day when I can afford a car. So I am not dependent, am not so dependent on the vagaries of the public transport in the local area. So that's her quote. And in this final box, we can actually write a story about Geraldine. We can summarize information from our user journey and our empathy map to talk about her. Geraldine, on a normal day, rushes around the house to get ready for work. She's concerned that the bus might be early, and that means she will be late for work and have difficulty getting in. This means she gets to the stop early, very early, and spends an inordinate amount of time waiting. She's always anxious about the transport situation and really wants assurance of its reliability and current real-time status. This flows onto her weekends, where she relies on the taxi service to get around and see her friends. And because of the high demands of the service, demands on that service, she never really knows how long she will have to wait to be picked up. So that's Geraldine's user story. So now we've got a persona. We can use this as a point of truth almost when we develop our application. We can look at her persona and we can consider the things that she wants, feels, needs. We can look at her empathy map. We can look at her user journey. And we can tailor make a solution to solve her particular problems. Now, the only thing lacking in this persona is some type of photo of Geraldine, but I don't have one. So I could just get some type of picture or avatar off the internet, and I could just substitute that in for the sake of an assignment. And now all I would need to do is take this persona, extract it from this website, and paste it into my presentation or documentation. So this is our completed persona. I have her basic details, her proto persona at the top, a quote, I use a story that tells me about her day, and then I have all her information. So this is information that is presented to me from the software that I used. Now, how am I going to present this? So when you create an assignment, you'll create assignments in two different ways. When you do a technical proposal, you're probably going to make a video of some description. And so in those instances, I would highly recommend that you cut up the user persona that you generate and put it on one page. And when you present all this information on one page, you don't sit there and you don't read it. It's enough to show that you have the persona and leave it on the screen for enough 10 to 15 seconds, which is enough time for someone to pause the video and read the persona. And then you can use that time for something else. Because if I sat here and read everything in this persona to you, I'm going to use 2 to 3 minutes. And that's 2 to 3 minutes of a project that I will have 7 to 9 or 9 to 11 minutes to develop and present. And that is an awful amount of time to spend on one small aspect of a solution. I would recommend reformatting these in the projects and the investigations that you also do, and refining them to match the specific documentation that is needed for those scenarios. So, just a few parting thoughts. You need to remember that for a full project, you would need to develop a number of personas for each scenario. More than one. A minimum of 2, but probably 3 is a good number. You could go far higher if you wished. You could develop maybe up to 6, if that were appropriate. But 3 is a pretty good number of personas to develop for any different project. For this scenario, we could have developed another persona. We could have decided that we would have an older person who's reliant on public transport in Benjamin Heads, and they need the system to be flexible enough so they can find out when's an opportune time for them to get their groceries or to reach their medical appointments, so they don't have to spend all day sitting around town. And we could find that as their need, want, or requirement. So there's lots of opportunities to develop personas, and you'll become quite good and quite quick at this process as time moves forward. So now I'm going to give you a task to do. There's an upward trend in general practitioners referring patients with cardiovascular disease to specialists across Queensland. Over 18% of the state's diseases were cardiovascular related. That's 4% above the national rate. If the trend in caseload continues, it's going to place a severe financial burden on the public health system. Nationally, more than 1 in 4 deaths were related to cardiovascular diseases. Now, cardiovascular disease, and heart disease specifically, is preventable in most cases. The government's made it a priority to work with GPs in the community to tackle the problem. Prepare a technical proposal for a wearable application or device to address the problem of cardiovascular disease. What you need to do is not solve the whole problem, is you need to develop a user persona for this scenario. So this means you need to do 1. Create a proto persona. Give someone's name, age, occupation, maybe a dot point about how they interact with the problem. Create an empathy map. Work out what they think, feel, say, and do in relation to the problem. Any pain points they currently experience, and potentially what they could gain from this project development for them. After that, you could create a user journey. How do they currently address this problem? Do they currently address the problem? How do they look after or manage their health currently? Once you've got that information, you can generate a final user persona.